I asked on Twitter, ask me any questions and I'll include them in a video. So this is my tweet right behind me asking you to ask me questions. So let's go through some of your questions. I have answered inline on Twitter already. Very brief, there's only so much you can achieve in 280 characters. So let's discuss it here now and share your thoughts in the comments below. Stop laughing, it's not helping. I posted this 2 days ago, so let's have a look what we've got. We've got Nick Hill is going to come back with a list of questions. I don't think they have come back in time with a list of questions, so their question unfortunately is not going to make this video, but I will reply to it. I think this can also be taken from what I say about open source. Don't try and write a massive pull request that is perfect and doesn't add value till months later. Ask one question now, ask another question tomorrow, ask another question later, but you're breaking it down into digestible bite sizes for the community to read and learn and join in the conversation, and you're keeping it laser focused and specific, just like with pull requests. And I think the same applies to Twitter as well. So unfortunately, they're missing out on being included in this video. Next up, we have Iman. So Iman asks, I've recently moved to another country and I have a language barrier. No idea about the people, culture and everything. I'm having difficulty getting into a developer job. Should I start work with a small job like in a cafe to improve my communication skills, language and get to know people? I have replied for this. I'm not going to bring up my reply because I can remember off the top of my head, kind of. But my thinking is, yes, you could do that. It's a great way to meet people, practice the local language or English, or whatever they're using. But to be honest, I would try and focus more on the technical side. And what I mean by that is there's probably meetups in this country and city that you're in. I would try and go to the technical meetups. It might not necessarily be on technology that you want to learn. Like if you want to learn, I don't know, Python, and there are no Python groups, but there are JavaScript groups, go to those, meet people in tech. That's going to open so many doors for you. You get to practice your communication, you get to practice your English or the language that they're using in that country, and you get to build your network, and they can introduce you to other people. And you can also volunteer at these events. Usually these events are run by volunteers, so you could volunteer too. That way it forces you to speak to people. It forces people to come up to speak to you, where can I get a drink? Where can I go to the toilet? Where can I get a ticket from? Where can I find a seat? What time does the event start, finish? And that way you're kind of forced to practice communicating with people, and people will get to know you. You'll stand out. You're not on stage giving a talk, which I think is something you could do later on, but you're still there. And if you can't answer their question, you can find out from the other volunteers the answer to the question. And that way, you're involved in the conversation. So I hope that helps. Let us know how you get on. It sounds super exciting. Let us know in the comments below which country you moved from and to, because also that's really exciting. I love to know where people are from and where they're kind of being digital nomads at. The next question we have is from Shadif. So they ask, I'm scared to launch a product open source. You're not the only one, so many people are. What if all my hard work I do for the product is just copied by someone else and they release a better version of it? How would you respond to this type of question? I think this is a great question because it happens a lot. And someone once said to me a long time ago, no one wants to steal your stupid product, because they have their own stupid ideas too. I think that's really good. Okay, I'm not saying that your idea or your product is stupid, but we all think ours is the best. It's just natural human nature. And so other people think theirs is the best. But you're right, there are some people who are a bit more devious, I don't know if that's the right word, and they'll look at your product and think they could do it better, and so they'll take it and start. But to be honest, the data is the most important thing. So I'm showing you Twitter behind me at the moment. What happens if Twitter gave you all their code? Could you do a better job than Twitter? I don't think so, because you don't have the community, you don't have the data, you don't have the infrastructure. There is so much more to it than the code, which is why I think you shouldn't worry about it. I release all my projects open source, and some have been stolen, some have been done a bit better, some died very quickly, as in that they didn't do much with it, and others, they couldn't build a community around it because they're not you, they haven't got your vision. Yes, they could start with your idea and maybe get a few steps ahead. However, the code and starting off with your idea to get a few steps ahead isn't enough. We do use open source libraries and frameworks to allow us to build our projects faster, but they are building blocks, they're not the actual idea and the goal. So I really think, as I've always said, people shouldn't be scared. Build your project, your idea, your company, your community, everything in public, and that will only help your project get more traction, more benefit. I mean, Red Hat did pretty well. I think Microsoft bought them for like 30 billion. Yes, that's Billion with a B. Thank you, Mikhail, for joining in the conversation. It's great to give different perspectives. I know you're saying you had a similar experience where I think, if I remember correctly, someone stole your issue and created it as a pull request. So you're right, the principles are the same, but I think when things are smaller, it's more likely to happen, but as things get bigger, it is then more difficult. And hopefully we can encourage the community to be more collaborative than rather trying to get one up on each other. But that's a conversation for another time. And again, thank you so much for being honest and transparent with this. The next question we have is from Curry. I'm going to abbreviate it. They ask, if someone's career track is related to data and machine learning field, not web development, how can they contribute to open source? This is another great question. Open source is so much more than web development. Web development, we probably shout about it the most. And that's why I think maybe people associate open source and YouTube channels and all the rest with web development. But there's so much more to open source. Even as far as legal documents and food recipes, there's so many things you can do with it. So you can definitely get involved. And Daniel, thank you so much for giving your thoughts on this as well. It's great for people to ask these questions in public and they can see different perspectives. I think that's really important, which is why I say to everyone, ask me questions, but don't ask them in DMs, because I want you to see other people's perspectives in addition to mine as well. And other people can learn from the conversation. Maybe they're a bit too nervous to ask. So yes, data science is huge and is massive in open source as well, and there are so many ways you can get involved. There is overlap with web development, for examples like tutorials, improving documentation, translations, but in addition to that, there are specific things to data science. Even data sets are now open source on GitHub too, so you can help organize that, and you can also create tools or integrate with other tools on consuming that data. So many ways. Please do get started. Let us know how you get on. Next question is from VJ. They ask, what are some red flags or green flags that you look for in a project or a repo? Again, I love this question. This is really important. I do talk about this on videos and live streams, but it's always good to go over this again so other people who have recently joined my community can see this. And I have different ideas that I learn from all of you as time goes on. So I did reply to this and I did mention, check for closed PRs, the ones that aren't merged. So they will appear on the closed tab on GitHub, but then you'll see in the list some have a purple icon, which means they've been merged, and some have a red icon, which means they've been closed. Click on the closed ones, and that's fine that they're closed, but check that they've been closed in a friendly way. For example, thank you so much for your pull request, but this is not a feature we want at this moment in time. That's absolutely fine. They might even suggest other issues to look at. But if it's just been closed by the maintainer with no comment, then that's not very friendly. So I would suggest maybe contributing to a more friendly project. Do also check for a license and a code of conduct. I think that's important. It shows the project maintainer is welcoming and does want people to contribute to their project. Other things you can look for also is how are the discussions and collaborations going on in the open pull requests with comments and code reviews, issues, discussions. Maybe there's a Discord community that's around the project. How are the collaboration going on there? Is it friendly? So I think there's definitely things to check out. Nitin, thank you so much for this question. It definitely made me smile. How to ask Eddie to take a session in our college? Funny enough, this is actually a really important question because I get asked on a daily basis, multiple times per day, and the ones that we do talk at these events is not because they've got a bigger following or the event's bigger or they've got better swag or better posters. It's the ones that make our life easier. Imagine if I'm getting 10 or 20 requests per day to speak at these events. Sometimes they say, Eddie, will you speak at our event? They don't mention where it is, what the event's about, what date do they have in mind, what time zone is it in, how many people they're going to have at the event. It doesn't mean bigger is better, but I mean smaller could be better because I can collaborate with people more on a personal level and have conversations with them. So I do enjoy the smaller events as well, but it's just good to give the information. And if you all want to learn more about how to approach speakers to get them to speak at your event, to be honest, we've written a blog post where we've been truly honest and transparent from our point of view, where we say, make sure you give enough lead time. Don't say, hey, our event's tomorrow, do you want to come and talk? That's too short notice, especially by the time they read it, time zones, getting organized. People are busy, and I think you need to respect and appreciate other people's times. We go into a lot more details in this blog post, but do give context. I love Q&A, so is there a Q&A section? I love diversity and inclusion. How diverse and inclusive is your event. That's really important to me, so make sure you include those if you have it as well. Loads of great tips here. A big shout out to Sarah who helped me write this. Let me know in the questions below your thoughts and feedbacks on this, and if you would like to see a video on this, I can do that too. Suleiman, thank you for this question. What niche are my freelance clients in? I focus my personal brand, my Twitter, my YouTube, my clients all in open source. So they're all in that space. And you say, interesting, first time you hear of this. Yeah, it's something that I've really wanted to focus on over the years and be a specialist and expert. But to be honest, I don't know everything. I'm still there learning and starting the conversation in public, and we can all learn together. So any more thoughts or feedback or questions you have on this, do let me know. Next question is from Source3. Is that how you pronounce it? Can I explain further? You don't need to code to be in tech. This is a tweet I put out a few days ago, and I got lots of great feedback. I got lots of negative trolls as well, lots of gatekeepers. But let's focus on the positive. So yes, you don't need to code to be in tech. Actually, being a developer is only one or two roles in tech. There are so many others. So I did reply to this. I did say, you've got tester. And even in these roles, they can be sub-niches of this role. So for example, tester. Yes, an automated tester will need to do some coding. That could be end-to-end testing, for example. But also we need to test like a user would. So we don't want the coding. The manual testing is just as important because they'll do different types of tests. This is really important too. So that type of tester doesn't need to code. Technical writing is another example where you have people that focus more on the code and then people who focus more on the writing. So that's really important too. Project manager doesn't need to code. UI UX doesn't need to code. Designer doesn't need to code. There are designers that do some coding, that's great, but there are some that don't. They focus even more on the creative side. So one message I want you to all take away is tech is huge and there are roles that are growing all the time, every day. There are roles that we have today that didn't exist a few years ago, and there'll be roles in a few years that don't exist today. I really believe tech is for everybody. So get involved in tech, and your experience, your opinion, your point of view really matters. You don't have to code to be in tech. Thank you all so much for those great questions. If you want to continue the conversations, don't forget to subscribe to my YouTube channel, give this video a thumbs up if you enjoyed it. Let me know what you think of this style of video. And I'm really keen to give all of you a shout out for asking these questions. So I will put your Twitter links in the description below. Everyone who's watching, go check out their profiles. They really put themselves out there to ask these questions publicly. And I'm really grateful. I hope you learned something from their questions and my answers. If you want to chat between live streams and videos, there's a link also below to our Discord channels. I look forward to geeking out with you in the EdiHub community. I'll see you soon.